From a 1,400-foot tower that is falling apart, to a $25 billion failed development, and a skyscraper that was almost destroyed in a hurricane, here are some of the New York skyline's most disastrous construction mistakes. Number 1. The Citicorp Center disaster. The Citicorp Center might be the most unique tower in New York, something which becomes clear the moment you walk by it on the street below. Built in the late 1970s, the tower was unlike anything New York had seen before. It rose 59 stories high, with its corners strangely lifted off the ground on stilts. Most assumed this was a bold design choice to bring attention to the building, but in reality, it served an important purpose. The building was planned right above the nearby St. Peter's Church, and when the owners refused to move it, the engineers devised a creative workaround. Instead of designing a standard base, they placed the massive steel columns in the middle of each side. Not only did this solve the issue, but created a beautiful piece of architecture. No one questioned it. However, soon everything would change for the worse. A year after it opened, Diane Hartley, an undergrad at Princeton, was studying the structure and noticed something weird. She sent a letter to the building's chief engineer, William Le Mesurier, and that one letter kicked off what would become one of the most terrifying near misses in New York City history. Turns out, the building was designed to handle wind hitting it straight on, but nobody had run the math on what would happen if wind hit it from the corners, something that happens pretty often during storms. The results were horrifying. If a strong enough diagonal windstorm hit Manhattan, the Citicorp Center could literally collapse. And it gets worse. During construction, builders had swapped out welded joints for bolted ones to save time and money. That change, combined with the flawed wind calculations, made the building way more vulnerable than anyone realized. Engineers estimated that under the right storm conditions, the building had a 1 in 16 chance of failing. And while that may seem like a small risk, it was completely unacceptable for a project of this size. So in the summer of 1978, a secret operation began. Workers snuck into the building every night after office hours, welding steel reinforcements into place, floor by floor, all while hurricane season was approaching. The city even had evacuation plans ready for a 10-block radius. But miraculously, the storm never came, and what could have been one of the worst structural disasters in US history was completely avoided. Number 2. 432 Park Avenue. New York is a city not afraid of building high, with over 17 super tall skyscrapers above 300 meters. Over half of these towers have been built in the past decade, and 432 Park Avenue is one of them. Standing at 1,400 feet, it is the second tallest building in the city's famous Billionaire's Row, the nickname for the stretch of ultra-luxury skyscrapers in Midtown Manhattan. The skyscraper began construction in 2012, and after being finished in 2016, its apartments began selling for as high as $90 million. Not only was the tower fitted with the highest tiers of amenities, but also provided spectacular views of nearby Central Park, easily making it one of the most exclusive addresses in the United States. On the outside, everything seemed perfect, but the moment residents began moving in, things changed for the worse. Everything started when loud creaking sounds began echoing through the skyscraper's highest floors, especially during storms or high winds. If this wasn't alarming enough, soon elevator failures began to spring up, leaving some residents trapped or stuck for hours at a time. If things couldn't get worse, unexpected pipe bursts began flooding 432 Park Avenue's million-dollar apartments, creating thousands of dollars worth of damage. So in a skyscraper that cost well over $1 billion to build, what could be causing all these issues? Well, engineers quickly realized the problem wasn't just bad luck. It was bad design. At nearly 1,400 feet tall and just 93 feet wide, 432 Park has one of the highest slenderness ratios in the world. And while that makes for a dramatic silhouette, it also makes the building incredibly prone to swaying and causing a variety of issues. While the skyscraper has been worked on to fix these problems, the developers were hit with a massive $125 million lawsuit. The building's residents cited over 1,500 different defects in their case, and many moved out following these incidents. The building is still occupied today, but along with the other super tall skyscrapers on Billionaire's Row, it contains many empty units. Number 3. Hudson Yards. Hudson Yards was supposed to be the future of New York, a $25 billion mega development built over active rail tracks on Manhattan's west side. It would have everything from offices and condos to parks, art installations, and shops. All of this packed into one shiny new neighborhood. When construction began in 2012, it was called the most ambitious private real estate project in American history. By 2019, the first phase opened to the public, complete with a brand new subway station and skyscrapers that touched the clouds. The centerpiece was the Vessel, a massive copper-clad staircase designed to be photographed and drive tourism in the area. Around it stood glass towers housing luxury apartments and some of the most expensive commercial real estate in the world. But it didn't take long for the problems to start. Despite the buzz, many apartments stayed empty. Luxury retailers struggled to attract shoppers. And the Vessel, once the crown jewel of the project, was shut down indefinitely after multiple tragic incidents. And that's when people started wondering what the real purpose of this ultra-expensive project was. Hudson Yards was drastically different from the surrounding New York landscape. It felt like a luxury complex designed for billionaires and tourists. The streets felt empty, and the public space wasn't inviting. The apartments were priced far out of reach for most New Yorkers, with even the cheapest apartments going for well over $3 million. The pandemic only made things worse as workers stopped commuting and the nearby offices and stores began to empty. So in a project that cost tens of billions, what went wrong? Well, the answer is simple. Hudson Yards prioritized aesthetics and profit over people. It tried to manufacture a neighborhood from scratch, but forgot to give it soul. There was no history or a unified community, just glass, steel, and a lot of empty space. Today, Hudson Yards still stands and has slowly become more popular. But many now see it as a warning, showing what happens when cities build for the ultra-rich and forget the city itself. Number 4. One Seaport. While the other structures on this list remain in use today, that can't be said for One Seaport, which is currently the tallest abandoned skyscraper in New York City. Officially known as 161 Maiden Lane, it was supposed to be a 670-foot tall glass tower with sleek architecture, panoramic views, and promises of unmatched luxury. It would have been one of the most desirable addresses in downtown Manhattan, but everything would go downhill before it could be completed. Construction began in 2016, and almost immediately, engineers started noticing a problem. The tower was leaning, not years after completion like you'd expect, but during construction. And not just a little, it tilted several inches to the north, making headlines as New York's leaning tower. So what caused this mid-construction disaster? Turns out it was all about the foundation. Instead of anchoring the building into bedrock using piles, something that's standard in Manhattan, the developers chose a cheaper and faster method known as soil improvement. It saved time and money, but it came with serious risk. And in this case, it didn't work. As the concrete was poured and the weight of the tower increased, the foundation began to shift unevenly. The result? A visible lean that threatened the structural integrity of the whole project. As soon as construction was halted, lawsuits began being thrown at the developers. Engineers debated whether the building could be fixed or if it would need to be partially or fully torn down. Buyers who had already put down millions for units suddenly found themselves stuck in a legal and financial nightmare. And the worst part? The building still sits unfinished. One Seaport was meant to be a symbol of luxury downtown living. Instead, it became a warning about cutting corners, rushing development, and what happens when profit is put ahead of structural safety. While other skyscrapers fight lawsuits over noise or flooding, One Seaport never even made it that far and remains a blemish in New York's iconic skyline.